Move to this story now. Government wants to review the legal drinking age. President Cyril Ramaphosa is calling for a national debate on lifting the legal drinking age to 21. Ramaphosa says the blame for the death of the 21 teens at eNCA Tavern must be laid at the feet of those selling alcohol to underage children. Now joining us is Adri Vermeulen from the South African National Council on Alcoholism and Drug Dependence. Adri, good morning and thank you very much for your time. You know, many are conflicted, they're torn. The president's call was generally welcomed yesterday, but one wonders if it doesn't seek to suggest that legislation is where the problem solely lies, because some argue that the root cause is far more complex and sometimes even unique in certain communities. What's your take?
That's right. Absolutely, what you're saying is correct. The policies, the legislation is there. It's actually what's happening on ground level, the implementation of these policies and wonderful strategies that we have, where we are really failing. So for me, it's yes, we already have policy changes. We already have very good national strategies. We've got the National Drug Master Plan, where it really looks at everybody collaborating and working in partnership to reduce harms, but we don't see it on ground level. So for us, from SANKA side, we want to say that prevention is where we need to really focus. We have to empower our youth through different evidence-based prevention programs. And just increasing the legal age to 21 is not the only answer.
So what could be done? Because when we look at our unique situation now, not just as South Africa, but the world, it seems we've successfully destigmatized alcohol dependence. Alcoholics honestly feel at home, which is great, but society moved to the other extreme where now they've glamorized alcohol dependence or alcohol abuse, where it's no longer a question as to whether you drink, but what kind of drink you drink. We're seeing this on social media everywhere. Is that not even causing this bigger problem for society?
I think you're absolutely right. If you look at our society and how our messaging around alcohol is the problem, so the alcohol itself is not the issue. People are generally responsible drinkers as adults, and the majority of people are responsible. But we don't see the binge drinking as an issue, or what people call functional alcoholism, which, by the way, doesn't exist in SANKA's eyes. There's nothing like a functional alcoholic that can glamorously have your drink of wine while you're cooking your meal, and that's not a problem for you. But meantime, you finished a whole bottle at night,
And that's what's happening in society, because everywhere you look, there's a video, somebody's reading a book, there's a glass of wine. They're taking a long bubble bath, there's a glass of wine. You're cooking, there's a glass of wine. And you've got young children that are seeing this and not thinking there's any stigma to it, or perhaps even an alcohol problem with this parent. It just looks like something to aspire to when you get older, that it must be even sophisticated. As role models, we are role models to our kids. They do what we do. So we have to start with ourselves, and look at do we have a healthy relationship with alcohol? What do we portray to our children out there? And it starts at home, and then we look at our communities. And like you said, rightfully said, we're different communities with different drinking cultures in those communities, and we have to also start there by looking at how do we change the views in a community where alcohol and drugs are seen as normal and as part of the fabric of that community. So was it not a missed opportunity to perhaps seek a debate that deals with this holistically, that as communities we influence young children to have that kind of relationship with alcohol that we have had, even though we might not believe that perhaps it's a bit excessive, the amount of alcohol we're drinking? So do you think that if perhaps a president speaks of raising the legal age, it was that missed opportunity where here he could have said, let's have a broader discussion about our relationship with alcohol as adults and even the social ills, because in most of these communities like Scenery Park, there are very few recreational alternatives for young people. So social services also needs to come in and ensure that these families are not child-headed and there are those alternatives for young people as opposed to going to a tavern. I think you've hit the nail on the head when you spoke about this is not just a once-off. We can't go and deliver speeches and then think we've changed a system. So we have to think about Scenery Park specifically. Now there's a whole lot of spotlight on this area, but that's not the only area. You know what I mean? These things are happening in other areas and has been happening for a long time. It goes back to everybody of us working together and really making a difference. And we've got, for instance, the Anti-Drug Coalition in Scenery Park, which consists of community members in 12 sectors. That's where we start making differences, where we start looking at what prevention we can do as communities. And the community knows what's best for their area. We as outsiders don't. So we can't go into a community thinking we're going to change that community. We have to look at who's the change agents in that community and work with them to bring about change.
Because they are a legitimate voice in that area, so it's not as if you're imposing what you think is right for the community. Very powerful. But then for ordinary citizens that would like to help SANKA partake in any of your initiatives, what's coming up currently?
Currently, we are starting with the community dialogues in Scenery Park. So they can join us. They can look out for our invitations to join these discussions. It is done in partnership with the CDA, the Central Drug Authority. We really think that this is going to start these debates where we talk about these uncomfortable issues, and really start formulating strategies that's going to work for Scenery Park. So we want to encourage people. This is not our only coalition. We've got coalitions throughout the country, and we will be doing the same with our coalitions and empowering them. We just came from, and that's the sad part of what happened, is on the 26th of June was International Drug Awareness Day against drug abuse and illegal trafficking. And those kids passed on that day. So we've just came through our SANKA week where we had a whole Pick Your Habit campaign. People can still do that. Take one habit and change it. Take 7 days to change your habit, whatever it is. We all have our little sins. So think about it, and then if we start doing it ourselves, we start understanding how difficult it is for somebody to give up something else. But it's just that awareness that this is a mental health condition that we are dealing with. It's an illness.
Audrey, thank you very much for your time and thank you for the wonderful work that you do. That's Audrey Vermeulen from the South African National Council on Alcoholism and Drug Dependence.